In this video, Sue Russell, who is a seasoned spiritual director, is going to answer those questions for us. Let's get into this interview. So what are some of the signs that a spiritual practice stops doing what it's supposed to, if you will? When does it stop bringing you to God? What are some of the signs that people can look for?
So that's a really good question. I think for me, when it starts to become kind of too rote, so that I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing, I have to be really careful about that. There's kind of a balance between disciplining yourself to not be bored too easily. You know, we do have generally fairly short attention spans these days. And one of the things that something like the discipline of making your bed or brushing your teeth every day will do is it helps you to learn the value of repetition and to be content with repetition. And so there is just sort of an aspect of, you just want to be, repetition is important, and learning how to be repetitious and learning how to be bored, if you will. But sometimes things just start to, they just don't seem as life-giving to me. I'm not even sure how really to describe it. Also, you want to be careful and watch yourself again, that you're not doing this because it looks good, or because it looks good to you, and that you start doing it just because it's a good Christian thing to do, and I want to look like a good Christian and stuff. So sometimes the disciplines and these things that we do, instead of bringing us closer to God, actually can kind of hold God at bay. Because we're so busy doing this thing out here that I don't actually have to engage with God in here. So when I find myself starting to just do the thing, but I'm not really engaging with God, I start to think maybe it's time to put that down and try something else. And then just sometimes for me, it isn't even just that something that I went off of something, but just that something else looked really interesting to me and really appealed to me. And part of that kind of does follow the liturgical calendar a little bit. So, I do certain practices at Lent, I do certain practices during Advent, I do certain practices during these different seasons. And so that helps to keep them from getting stale. Yeah. And doing that. Or like I said, sometimes I'll just be reminded of, I haven't done a Visio Divina in a really long time, or I find myself recommending a practice to somebody else that I haven't actually done in ages. Yeah. Like maybe I should pick that up again and just see how it's going. So you always want to be careful. Like I said earlier, whenever I recommend a practice to someone, I always want to make sure that they really clearly understand what it's for and what it's not for. Yeah. And even like in the practice of silence, even if it doesn't seem like anything is happening or you're getting any benefit in the moment, a lot of times the benefit comes because you're doing it, not when you're doing it, if that makes sense.
That's very good.
And you'll just find, like, for instance, there's a practice called the Examen, which is a thing you do at the end of the day. I find that when I'm practicing the Examen, my whole day, I think differently. And my heart is different, because I know at the end of the day, this practice is coming. So I'm more intentional and paying more attention to things during the day, so that I do have something to talk about with God during the Examen as I go back. So it makes me more conscious and more there. So a lot of times it's not so much the practice itself, but what the practice kind of does for you in the general part of your life. So I think you just have to pay attention to yourself and what your motivations are and why you're doing what you're doing. And don't be afraid to keep going, even if it seems boring, but also don't be afraid to say, okay, that's enough for now. Let me try something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you painted so beautifully a picture, as that the result is to be with God. And this is something that I've actually seen in spiritual direction is, and some people might fall off their chairs right now if they've gotten this far in the video, but I've actually encouraged people to maybe put their Bible down for a little bit. Or church is super triggering because something happened. So maybe not the discipline of going to church and worshiping communally is something you can put aside. You think, oh my gosh, well but did Jesus go to church every single Sunday and crack open the Torah? Maybe not, but was he in God's presence? Yeah. And so I think you said too, the word, listening to this, Ignatian, listening to the internal movements of your heart. Where's this discipline taking me? Is it so painful and so rote and so boring that I'm actually banging my head against the wall and I'm just doing this because I feel like I'm pleasing God or trying to do the good Christian thing? It's really, again, where's our attitude?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's
Yeah, I
huge.
did actually recommend to one of my directees that she stop going to church for a month. Yeah,
That's
that's
great.
for that,
Yeah.
exactly what you're
Yeah.
talking about. If it's
Yeah.
not, the discipline is serving you well if it is bringing you closer into a relationship with God. To the degree that it's doing that, it's a good discipline for you. To the
Yeah.
degree that it's not, it may be a good discipline, but it may not be a good discipline for you.
Yes, absolutely. It's not a one size fits all. Just because your pastor is the way your pastor, you know, has his quiet time with his cross out. I remember listening to a whole sermon where this is how I hear it from God. And it was like, well, but there's a bunch of ways and a bunch of things to do. I'm not analytical like you. So what, you know, so that's really important to do this. And I think I would also just like, I know we're going to wrap up here, but if everyone wants to do it, I think doing it with another person, if you want a spiritual practice and you're not sure how to integrate that into your life, having a spiritual director, someone who's done spiritual practices to kind of help you maybe choose and discern which one would be for you. That's also a really good, and that's been helpful for me. I know both Sue and I are actually spiritual directors, so I know I would be happy to meet with anybody too. If you want to know more about spiritual practices and how to start implementing them into your life, then check out this playlist where I have a ton of spiritual practices and how to do them and integrate them into your prayer life. Thanks so much. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.